Welcome on in. This is the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, John McKechnie. That is Mario Puig. This is the Divisional Round preview. We got 4 games to go. We got 2 tickets for each conference championship on the line. So huge weekend. A lot of people say this is the best football weekend of the year. I tend to agree with that. We got games 4:30 and 8 o'clock on Saturday Eastern time, and then 3 and 6:30 on Sunday to keep us going. We got the national championship for college football on Monday. So a lot of good stuff coming our way. Before we dig into all those games, and we're gonna give them the proper deep dive treatment, we will begin with a look at some of the coaching carousel stuff. Last week we talked about John Harbaugh and his recent firing as of Tuesday of last week, and how teams were kind of knocking down his door for interviews. It seems like he has found his spot. It sounded like, according to Ian Rappaport, earlier Thursday morning, the Giants will spend the morning finalizing a 5-year deal with former Ravens head coach John Harbaugh, making him one of the NFL's highest paid coaches. But Harbaugh has accepted the job, and the first job opening across the NFL is filled. So what do you make of this hiring for the Giants? And if you were Harbaugh, as someone who's obviously been pretty sought after in this coaching cycle, would the Giants have been your pick?
I have a lower opinion of John Harbaugh than probably most people, which is funny
You do.
because I probably have a higher opinion of Jim Harbaugh than most people, but they are totally different coaches to me. I think with Jim, you see an ability to truly see and understand and anticipate the game, to mold it with a clear understanding of its problems and its solutions, at least most of the time. Good game day preparation, all that stuff. John Harbaugh is not even ostensibly most of that. Ostensibly, he's at least supposed to get the team focused, ready for game day. Maybe you could say that was a trait evident with the Ravens for some part of John's tenure there, but I don't think for the last, I don't know, however many years I've been getting irritated with this thing, 5 years or something. It's felt more like actually they're kind of not showing up anymore. It seems like they're more so disappearing at those moments where they used to be the team you knew would kind of answer that moment. You can, I think, pretty clearly attribute the success that John Harbaugh had with the Ravens more so to the state of the team left behind by Ray Lewis and Ozzie Newsome, because it was just kind of like this is just a massive, well-run machine that you're stepping into as John Harbaugh hired as a special teams coach from Philadelphia or wherever he was before. And a caretaker could have gotten the level of success that he had there, and I think that's exactly what did occur. And later on, when the Ravens needed more than a caretaker, when the GM was Eric DaCosta instead of Ozzie Newsome, and things predictably started to deteriorate, John Harbaugh was not capable of making up the difference. And you could, I guess, say to defend him, like, well, maybe that's just a problem with the Ravens and not John Harbaugh, and maybe it's not his fault. Basically, it's like, yeah, fair enough, but they needed more than he had. He didn't give it to them, and they've taken this quarterback who should be a 3-time MVP. They got nothing out of it with a bunch of pretty good defenses when they were run by McDonald and
Pease.
Pease, Martindale, all those guys. And like if particularly, I guess what really might have been the last straw for me about John Harbaugh with the Ravens was that he was not able to delegate anymore. He was not able to identify the kind of candidates they needed in important roles to uphold the standard that the Ravens had when he inherited that team. And specifically the Zach Orr as defensive coordinator thing was like, this is too much. If this is what you got to go, because this is terrible. To me, the pitch for John Harbaugh being your head coach is that, well, he'll always get you a Mike McDonald. He'll always have a Martindale, a Dean Pease, a Rex Ryan, somebody in tow to make sure that defense stays killer. And now he can't do that. So it's like, well, what exactly do you do around here?
Yeah, he
We
just
don't.
he sort of picked wrong. Like the staff got like really pillaged after the 2023 season. It wasn't just McDonald going, but I would imagine that there was a choice made where he lets Anthony Weaver walk and instead
Yeah,
promotes Zach Orr, and that was a misstep, obviously. And like in terms of Weaver, I always liked him as a player for the Ravens, and I don't really hold how Miami's performed defensively these last couple of years against him. I think that is a roster that is poorly
the
constructed.
players liked him a lot more than
Yeah.
Fangio. That was look up those quotes if any listeners haven't seen that. It's pretty funny the way that as soon as Fangio left and Weaver showed up to Miami, like Javon Holland was one of them. He's just like, oh yeah, I don't hate going to work anymore. It's so cool.
Yes. So obviously like a misstep there as far as Harbaugh picking. Like I loved the idea of Zach Orr, but I think that he just wasn't quite ready yet. I
He's
don't think the
under
book's
seasoned,
closed.
yeah.
Yeah, the book's not closed on him by any means. I think if he goes somewhere is like a linebacker coach, works his way back up to being a DC, like
Yeah.
I think this works out well for Orr long term. But it was clear that was a little bit too experimental for where this team was in its competitive window, and it ultimately failed them to where I think you look at the Steelers' last two games, right? And it's not easy to go against the Texans by any means, but the sheer contrast of that game Monday night versus the Sunday night game against Baltimore, where it was like the open and shut case that the Steelers were going to be able to go down the field 80 yards and score a touchdown with no timeouts and just a 2-minute warning remaining. Like that tells you how far the defense fell under Orr's tutelage. And like you're saying, like that kind of ends up falling on Harbaugh. So it, again, not to rehash too much from last week with my takes on it, but it was time for him to go. I think that, the we were pretty big Dable guys, I think, and he
I
was kind
still
of
am.
failed by the organization. I think Dable being the new OC in Philly or something would kind of just put him one step away from being a head coach once again somewhere else. But in Harbaugh's case with the Giants, I think there's kind of an expectation that Monken would follow him up
Yeah.
there. Obviously, you have a building block in Jackson Dart. We'll see what Malik Neighbors looks like coming off of his injury, and Scadaboo, same deal. But there's talent on that roster. It's still an incomplete roster. I think we can say pretty fairly, and I think that
It's a
there's a
dumb
lot of
division.
development. Dumb
So
division.
other than like the AFC South, I feel like the NFC East is probably like the best spot to look better than you actually are as a head coach.
I mean the Panthers too, with the NFC
Oh
South
yeah,
being
the
a
NFC.
clown show. But Dart's get this is a bet I think for Harbaugh on Jackson Dart, and
Mhm.
it was kind of funny watching the Ole Miss game last Thursday. There's some lip reading going on. Dart was at the Ole Miss game, and it looked pretty obvious, like just the way that the camera was on him, that he said like it's going to be Harbaugh, and everyone ran with it.
Yeah.
So I guess that there is a reason why athletes and stuff will cover their mouths when they're talking, but yeah, that would be one reason. But Dart's really interesting to me. I think that there's a long ways to go for him to be more complete as a passer, but I think a lot of the traits are there to work with, to where I felt like the Giants were something of an upper echelon, attractive, open job. As a result, just getting to work with him and seeing what you can get out of him here as he enters year two. So I like this fit. I think this fit makes a lot of sense. I think that this has been a pairing that has been largely kind of the connection's been made in media basically since Harbaugh got fired. So to me, this is a good hire for the
The bigger
Giants, I think.
story, yeah, I think the bigger story for the Giants is still that Joe Shane somehow still has that job. Like that's just that's crazy. That's so wild. And the Dart pick is pretty much the only reason why, and it's so funny to me because Dart's good clearly, but we don't know what he's going to amount to, what that team's going to amount to with him. We did, however, already very directly see the Eagles win a Super Bowl after John Mara said on Hard Knocks to Joe Shane specifically, like, it's pretty much my absolute worst nightmare of all time type scenes if Saquon were to, for instance, go to the Eagles and win a Super Bowl, and just letting you know that. Anyway, see ya. And then the next that like within like 10 minutes or so, that exact outcome began to unfold, and it's like that guy got out of it. He was in the pit with the monster, and like the walls were closing in with the spikes. How did he get out of that? I don't understand.
That is that's something else. So I mean, we'll have to see how if he can magically get some of these draft picks right here for the Giants coming this spring. Speaking of the draft, how about that for a transition? Dante Moore, the quarterback of the Oregon Ducks. You may have saw him on Friday. Tough scene for him against Indiana, but that's okay. Maybe Indiana knew the plays anyway. I don't actually believe that, but it is very funny how loud that narrative is out there. But regardless, folks, the big deal is this quarterback class wasn't looking good with Dante Moore in it. Now it looks even more bleak. I think like you have Fernando Mendoza, who's pretty awesome. I think we'll unpack him more as the playoffs wind down and we're able to kind of dive a little bit deeper into who he can be, who he can project as at the next level. Again, I feel like the mind of Kirk Cousins exists within Mendoza, but with Moore going back to school here, is there someone in Ty Simpson leaving Alabama to go to the NFL draft? Like after Mendoza, what is there to like as far as the quarterbacks go in this class?
I don't know. I got to look closer at Mendoza too, but admittedly, his numbers at a very quick glance this year, at least, are awesome. And it would take kind of concerning tape for me to it's basically a foregone conclusion that Mendoza is the quarterback one. It's sort of just like where we rank him grade wise. That is yet to be determined. But his numbers pass the test. Dante Moore, if he was supposed to be the quarterback two and a competitor for the quarterback one distinction, I don't see his numbers as convincing as Mendoza's. Is like there's similar themes going on. The 70+% completion percentage in both cases is great. Moore's was 71.8 last year, 8.7 yards per attempt, really high touchdown percentage. That's great, but he wasn't throwing the ball that much per game, and the 10 interceptions kind of stand out to me. As a third-year player, I'd rather not – a third-year player who hadn't really played convincingly before that point, I would have liked to have seen better numbers than that last year. Whereas Mendoza, it's like I definitely cannot criticize him by the numbers. So Dante Moore returning to school, I see this agnostically. I know there's different theories about like, oh, you got to go to school if this or that, or you must go pro if this or this. And I guess more as a generally projected top 10 pick, maybe he is shirking convention somewhat by going back to school. But I think it's both possible that he improves going back to school and not at all guaranteed that he does. And I just sort of see it as, well, at least he's getting paid in the meantime, so it's not nearly as high stakes of a question as it used to be.
Yeah, no, this wouldn't be a thing in the pre-NIL era, but Oregon with its deep coffers paying not only Dante Moore but also Dylan Raiola, who will be draft eligible next year. But he's more looking at the 2028 class. Obviously,
is he actually good?
I don't know. Nobody knows.
I don't think he's that good. Anyway, I hate all the quarterback prospects forever from this point in time.
Yeah, they're all 7-on-7 merchants, and the position's just getting worse by the year. But this year, like if we zoomed it out and like looked at these guys going into the 2025 season as draft class prospects, we would have thought it'd be better than this, though. Like I thought that Garrett Nussmeier had a lot to him, and this year was pretty much a disaster for him at LSU. I think the Ty Simpson, I think that his warts kind of showed as the season progressed. I do think he was banged up with something down the stretch, but there's just a pretty limited ceiling, I feel like, to his game. Carson Beck has had a very kind of roller coaster draft projection. I mean, I think that, 2 years ago, everyone would have thought that he was the first overall pick last year, and he is still in college. So
what, man?
Mhm.
Sorry, wait, is Beck not Beck he's in the draft, right?
He can't go back to school.
Right, yeah, he's not allowed.
There's got to be a rule.
I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up going disgustingly high in a way that makes everybody, even the team that drafts him, like their fans will complain about it. But you'll see the league like guard of convention saying like he's prototypical height. You know, he's got the arm. Sure, he didn't really play like it, but he sure looks like he's going to play that way before he fails to. Workout setting. You know, the not to say Tyler Shuck can't be good, but I still am not convinced at all about him and the way like he went 40th overall, pretty much because he was at the combine and the people watching him thought, you know, if I didn't have any prior knowledge of any of these quarterbacks and I just looked at them right now, I would assume this guy's the good one because he looks more like Mr. Touchdown USA clip art in my head than the rest of them do. Ty Simpson very much does not look that. I'm kind of trying to resign to the probably grim fact that Simpson will go in the first round, but I really don't understand it. I was shocked to look back on him and see how high of a recruit he was. Just looking at him at a glance and then looking at his numbers in college, I assumed he must have been one of those portal era transfers, those portal era promotions. Like I just assumed, oh, this must be some fifth-year player from Louisiana Monroe or something who they kind of brought in to be a wily veteran. To see him talk about it as a first-round pick, Ty Simpson, that's crazy to me. I think whatever team takes him is probably a bad one unless it's in the fourth round or later.
I wonder what things could have looked like with Alabama if like Jalen Milroe transferred after Nick Saban retired and Ty Simpson took over the offense in 2024. But just 1 year of starting experience at this
not
age,
good numbers either,
and not particularly good numbers. Just he's a weird case where I think the expectation right now is probably like late first round, like probably around where Dart went last year. But you know, quarterback thirst is real, especially when you run into a situation like this one where we have one of the better, at least prospect type of guys opting to go back to school, and then you've got someone like a Drew Aller who a lot of people,
you know,
he's Mr. Touchdown USA. As far as like what does he look like? He's 6'5", he's 240. He can run. He's got a good arm, but he can't play quarterback. It's like the Moneyball meme. It's like his one flaw is that he's not actually good at playing quarterback. He just really, really looks like one. So his stock tanked, and then he had a season-ending ankle injury this year. So I don't know if that's going to affect his ability as far as the offseason workout stuff. I'm sure that they can move stuff around so he can work out for teams before the draft. But, you know, he's another guy. Yeah, he's another guy who just kind of had a tough year as far as his draft stock is concerned. And then Cade Klubnik always just seemed like a college quarterback to me. So I don't view him as like a serious NFL prospect. If you want to get a little bit deeper into the weeds, you know, we'll have to see what happens with Trinidad Chambliss. The NCAA denied his waiver, but the state of Mississippi is like appealing that or suing on his behalf. So,
cool.
You know, anytime that you see Tom Mars getting involved, you know that things are about to get crazy. And then I'm interested in Taylon Green as like a day 2 or day 3 flyer out of Arkansas. I mean, he's 6'6", 225, runs like a deer, good arm. I don't think that he had a lot of help around him at Arkansas or at Boise State other than when he was there with Ashton Genty. So if you're looking at tools in this class, I think Taylon Green has them as far as your non-Mendoza types, but we'll have to see if anything kind of forms around his draft stock narrative.
Yeah, that guy I need to Taylon one I need to watch. I think the only quarterback in college football that I'm getting my hopes up at all to be a good NFL other than Mendoza is Darian Mensah, who I guess is not in this group this year.
Correct.
But hopefully Mensah can be a total monster next year and finally give us a quarterback prospect where we're like, yeah, this guy needs to go top 5.
Mensah's the truth. I loved watching him at Tulane. He goes to Duke, balls out again this year. I think that, you know, Duke basically has put their entire football identity and the hopes of their entire program around him with what they're paying him. And even if, they won the ACC championship. So yeah, no, it's working. It's good.
It
And
seems worth it. Yeah.
no, Mentz is great. I'm excited for him next year. Next year, I know this is like time eternal to just say, just wait till next year. And I was just crapping on us for saying that this time in January of 2025. But I do think, conventionally speaking, we will have more prospects to choose from this time a year from now. But this year, probably looking like a pretty light class again, with Dante Moore opting to return to school. All right, let's go ahead, unpack these divisional games. Before we do that, we got a quick message from our friends at Dabble. Dabble isn't just another DFS app. It's the ultimate social platform where you can connect with other fantasy sports lovers. Dabble lets you win big. You can win up to 5,000 times your money this football season. Starting with Dabble is easy. New users get $25 free when signing up. No deposit necessary. Check out the link in the episode description below to download Dabble now. All right, let's lead things off here. Looking at divisional round weekend, we start in the Mile High City, Mario. We have the Broncos coming off the bye, the number 1 seeded Broncos. 1-point favorites at home against the Buffalo Bills, who were able to escape the Lions' den and beat the Jaguars in a pretty thrilling, awesome game last Sunday afternoon. I think every drive was a touchdown in the fourth quarter, except for the game-ending interception from Trevor Lawrence. Awesome game. But the Bills are coming in here a bit walking wounded as far as the offense is concerned. Gabe Davis, season-ending injury, and I believe Tyrell Shavers also season-ending injury. I think he played on a torn ACL for part of the game last week.
For some reason. Don't do an Orlando scary.
Don't do it, folks. Speaking of the Broncos. But your thoughts here on this game? We got an over-under of 46.5. I feel like there couldn't be a better matchup for the Bills at this stage, but I'll let you go first here.
I think the Broncos are pretty dangerous, but only because of their defense. And of course, if Josh Allen or whatever combination of forces on the Buffalo offense can overrule or just withstand that Denver defense, then at that point, I admittedly don't know what the Broncos are supposed to do to win the game, because I don't see their offense doing it. Maybe I'm selling Bo Nix a little short. I am critical of him, so it's possible that I'm not giving him quite enough credit. However, I feel like the deal with Nix at this point has been straightforward enough that he's good at protecting the ball, or he's creating a lot more touchdowns than turnovers, but the plays that he makes as a passer are not often enough in structure, because I don't know what specifically it would be. I don't think it's the accuracy. I think it's probably a combination of Nix doesn't quite have the prescient processing that he would need to make consistent big plays as a passer, even in light of his kind of mediocre throwing velocity. The downfield pass hasn't been good enough for the kind of tools that the Broncos have to threaten downfield. And if you can't make this Buffalo secondary spread itself out, then they're very comfortable spamming the underneath, the areas that Nix is more likely to throw to. So Nix is a quarterback to this point who has thrown not far downfield and yet does not complete many passes. He has a low completion percentage for how unambitious his passes tend to be. And Buffalo's defense, their secondary, is so comfortable ball hawking those underneath pouncing opportunities, and it seems to me like Nix is going to serve up a lot of those. So the Broncos need to run a lot, and they need to run well. I think RJ Harvey's really good, but I'm not sure that Sean Payton really knows what he's doing with this ground game. It bugs me as a Madden franchise mode player that the Broncos cut Audric Estime instead of Jaleel McLaughlin. It's like, you need a power guy in a game like this. It would really be nice to have Audric Estime right now if you were the Broncos. Whereas look at Jaleel McLaughlin, and this guy's RJ Harvey's caddy. We can just pay somebody. We can get anybody else to do that, and he doesn't even need to be on the 53-man roster. So RJ Harvey has a lot of slack falling on him, and he can make big plays. He can take on even a good amount of volume, in my opinion. But I want someone who can kind of make those small Bills linebackers dread the next play. And the Broncos do not have that player. So Terrell Barnard, by the way, looks like he might be back. So, one example right there. Terrell Barnard is a really good linebacker who affects the game in a big way for the Bills, but he's 220 pounds. If my running back's bigger than that guy, I don't care if he tackles him short a few times. Like, he's gonna do it a lot. We're gonna make him wish he was 20 pounds heavier than he is. And it's all apparently instead this gulf that the Broncos can't bridge with personnel apparently needs to be made up for by Sean Payton's genius play calling, which I don't think is a thing. So the Denver defense, I'm not trying to make it sound like the Broncos stand no chance here, but their defense does need to win it, and it maybe can. Josh Allen did get roughed up in that Falcons game. The Falcons' swarming pass rush maybe is a little bit comparable to the Broncos one in the sense that, like, it's fast
Texans
and it's from
too.
all over. Yeah, so it's a big test for Josh Allen on the other side. It's just, even though the Bills got a little bit overwhelmed by maybe the Falcons or whatever else, their offensive line is still the best one in the NFL by quite a bit. And Josh Allen does not need to score that many points to outscore Bo Nix. Generally, that is a safe assumption. So I'm definitely taking the Bills. I suppose I expect it to be a relatively close game. It's just, if that's the case, I would see it more as the Bills didn't score a lot of points, even so, the Broncos were also probably not threatening. If it's 10-6 or something Bills, and the Bills have 3 times the yardage that the Broncos do, I don't consider that a close game in that moment. I'm like, oh, this team's clearly about to stomp this team. It's almost over. That's how I see that kind of moment. And I just don't know how else the Broncos can. I don't know what other way it's supposed to go for the Broncos unless they sack Allen and make Allen turn the ball over, which it hasn't really happened in the playoffs before.
No, he's been great in that regard, and we know that even with like kind of a shorthanded personnel group around him of skill guys outside of James Cook, like, he can make chicken salad out of chicken with this group of receivers. So you feel like Josh Allen, like, as good as this Broncos defense is, he's going to get his, and
the Bills defense is set up well too. Like, the Broncos offense probably needs to consider themselves the hunted. The Bills defense is a better defense than the Broncos offense is an offense.
That's right. And one way to attack the Bills is on the ground. Like you were saying, they gave up 5.1 yards per rush attempt this year. That was third worst in the league, behind only the Giants and the Bengals. And they also gave up the most rushing touchdowns. So as much as they want to make Bo Nix like the golden boy, like, I think RJ Harvey is going to need to be like the key factor here for this Denver offense. We've seen the Bills, part of the formula of beating them is absolutely being able to run the ball and making them pay for having those undersized linebackers. We'll see if the Broncos are able to do that. I'm dubious. I like the Bills to win this one outright, and in something of a close game, but it wouldn't surprise me if like the Bills ended up winning this one by like 10.
Yeah, I think if a team were to win it by 10, it would much more likely be the Bills. I think the Broncos do have a real shot, and I guess to be fair to Nix, he had that one game against the Packers that was pretty good, but I'm trying to think of a second good game in 2 years, and I can't really think of one. So I'll say Buffalo, I don't know, 17 to, I don't know, 12 or something.
Cool. So we like the under.
Game like that, yeah.
Looks like weather's not going to be a factor. Looks like it's going to be one of those weird, like, it always trips me out with Denver in the playoffs, where like it's just like beautiful in January. Sometimes it's going to be like 40 degrees and sunny on Saturday in Denver, but then of course you can always get like the crazy snowstorms. But this week won't be one of them. So pretty neutral conditions as far as that is concerned. Let's get on over. Nightcap on Saturday. Can't wait for this one. We've seen these guys just a couple weeks ago square off for the right to have the number 1 seed in the NFC. I'm talking about the Seahawks and the 49ers. 49ers are being doubted once again. They are 7-point underdogs in this one going up to Seattle. They were, of course, I think 5.5-point dogs when they won outright in Philly a week ago.
Yeah, I don't do so with any courage, but I am picking against the 49ers, actually including to cover, just because I think as much as the 49ers might have been, as much as Kyle Shanahan might have been saving some of his tricks in that regular season finale against the Seahawks, where the Seahawks, of course, won pretty easily. 49ers never really got going at all. That game, sure, maybe Shanahan let it go. Maybe he wasn't prepared to show his full hand there. But I also think it's possible that there doesn't really exist tricks to get the 49ers out of the personnel jams that they find themselves in here. If Fred Warner can come back for the 49ers, that's admittedly big. And if it's sort of if it's emotion and whatever, some kind of emotional galvanizing thing that the 49ers need to overachieve and make up the talent difference, the healthy talent difference, to be clear. I mean, if the 49ers were a healthy team, this would be a totally different question to me. But in their current state, the 49ers don't have as much talent as the Seahawks. And when you're talking the trenches specifically, that's when I start to worry there's nothing you can do about the game in question, because Byron Murphy, Leonard Williams, those guys as a tandem, the other players in the front seven for the Seahawks are of course good, but I see Williams and Murphy as the pillars on which it's all built. And unfortunately for the offense, these pillars are quite heavy and they don't let you get any traction or push in the interior. And in your passing game, they can collapse the interior, push your quarterback, to the edge where they have a few guys who can chase you too. A weak spot earlier in the year, like Reek Woolen, has seemingly settled in well for the Seahawks. I assume it's the nature of learning Mike McDonald's coverage schemes, which are more complex than what Pete Carroll was running. Straightforward cover 3 stuff with Carroll versus endless variation when McDonald won. And Reek Woolen struggled with that initially, but he got better over the course of the year. Devin Witherspoon was missing for most of the first half of the year. He's back now. The Seahawks defense had good numbers throughout the year, and yet this version right now is probably the best version of it yet. So that's just one of those things where on their respective trajectories, how can I expect the 49ers to make a serious game of this when if only because we know if it were the other way around, the Seahawks couldn't. If the Seahawks had as many injuries as the 49ers did, we'd be like, oh yeah, 49ers, no problem.
Yeah, this could be the weekend's only sort of route. I fear.
I hope not.
I mean, I hope not too. I like entertaining games. This on once we get to the postseason, but I think like the Niners, just like that one more injury, added on, I think is really, really kind of devastating for them. And that of course is George Kittle going out with the Achilles. So that not only wipes out the rest of his season, but who knows if he's going to be good to go next year or what he will look like at that stage. So, Jake Tonjes, fine as like your second tight end, but I think that we've just kind of reached critical mass with this 49ers injury situation. Really the only way in which I see the 49ers getting this done is really just if they force things in a way, and I don't know if defensively they have the personnel at this point to do this, especially in Seattle, but if they can coax the Darnold game that I think every Seattle fan fears to see, or every Vikings fan is well aware of, then of course the Niners have a chance. But short of that, and it's not to say that Purdy doesn't have that ability either, but over the course of 60 minutes, like I think that the Seahawks will just be able to limit the mistakes. They can run the ball really well against this undermanned 49ers front. I think Zach Charbonnet has a big game here. Any sort of playoff league that I'm still in where I got to use Charbonnet, I feel like he's going to be, kind of money from here on out. I like the Seahawks to win this one and probably cover as well.
Yeah, and part of why I'm also making that pick is I think Clint Kubiak is the real deal. Not to take credit away from Mike Macdonald, he's obviously doing a really good job, but I think Clint Kubiak is the best coaching hire you can make right now. At least on the offensive side. I got to leave some room for guys like Minter and Ejiro Evero, who I love to hype. But Clint Kubiak to me is the most is even more convincing than Ben Johnson was last year, and I thought Ben Johnson was pretty convincing.
Wow. I mean, that's a big statement because everyone loved Ben Johnson. That's obviously worked out great for the Bears. We'll get a little bit more on that
Everyone
game
except
next.
the Commanders. How about that? That's funny. You can see now too how Ben Johnson must have behaved in that interview, right? Like we saw that headline, we're like, what the hell do they mean? The interview went poorly. It's just an interview. What could it, and now you see how Ben Johnson's just a total maniac. It's like,
Yeah.
he smelled that they were weaklings, and he started making faces at them and like knocking over stuff off their desk and stuff.
Yeah, he took his shirt off and like hair
Yeah.
started coming out of his ears and stuff. I guess personnel wise, like what would the Pat be? Because we have that expectation that Seattle gets it done here, and I think in my mind's eye, I'm envisioning a Seahawks Rams NFC Championship game in Seattle. I think we need a little bit more from like that Thursday night game in December. That just it felt exactly like, man, this has got to be the NFC Championship preview. But if the 49ers are to make this a game, how do they do it?
I think it has to look a little like the Eagles game where it's almost like the easy part is getting that offense to play poorly, right? And it's not easy to make. It's not even easy to make Darnold play poorly because Kubiak and the overall system that the Seahawks have on offense give Darnold a lot of insulation. And I would expect that Kubiak won't make this more complicated than it needs to be. Like I don't think, right or wrong, I'm not expecting Kubiak to fall into a trap like Kyle Shanahan did when he was the Falcons offensive coordinator against the Patriots. Getting cute and letting the game slip away, I don't really think is in Kubiak's nature because he's a little bit more run purist than the Shanahans, even though the Shanahans, of course, are very serious about running the ball. Like the Kubiaks are a little bit more yet, and I just think getting Darnold into those situations where he flinched last year and has failed times in the past, you just don't have the disruption ability to do it. With guys like Alfred Collins and CJ West or whatever the other rookie was, like they can maybe hold some space, but they're not going to collapse the pocket and make Darnold panic. Those corners can't do anything about Jackson Smith and Jigba. They might also struggle a little bit with Rashid Shaheed, by the way, who's a lot faster than those two corners. So you need to stop those big plays. You need to be able to bend but not break in the run defense if you're the 49ers. Like you need to understand the Seahawks are prepared to play a game of attrition. Like as long as they don't turn the ball over, they don't mind punting a couple times. If they run it 3 times and they only get 9 yards, they're like, whatever, we'll get you the next time. And they're probably right to think that. But the 49ers have to make them work at least that much for it. Ideally, they would get Darnold to somehow fall for some kind of trap. I just don't know how you get the Seahawks to let Darnold into the field that much. Like I think they're just going to straight up hide him, so you can't lay that trap to tempt him in the first place. And if that all works and you just contain but don't break on defense, you need, as the 49ers, a trick play or two on offense. And of course, the Jawan Jennings one, we use that. I doubt that's going to work, but it would be hilarious if it did. I would love it if Shanahan could somehow prove he's such a good offensive schemer and play caller that he beats 2 teams in a row in the playoffs with different types of Jawan Jennings trick pass touchdown plays. It just seems unlikely to me. And Christian McCaffrey's rushing returns probably won't be that great. Like I said, Williams and Murphy just don't let anything build in the middle of the field. So I just see a lot of slack, of course, landing on McCaffrey more than ever, and with probably less room than ever to negotiate with it.
Yeah, so I'm just worried that this 49ers offense gets a little bit stuck in the mud here, and like it's just going to be kind of a offensive onslaught from the Seahawks. Like even when they're not going on scoring drives, like you're saying, like they're still going to be landing those body blows that turn into haymakers later on in the game. So I think eventually the Seahawks pull away in this spot. Let's move on over to Sunday's action. Let's get a little Texans versus Patriots going. We've got the Patriots favored by 3.5, it looks like, at most shops, 3 at some, and the over-under, 40.5.
Yeah, I hope the Texans can show up and make this a good game. I see that some of the betting was initially a bit scared, at least for the spread. There was a little anxiety about 3.5, I think it was previously, maybe 3 now for the Patriots. So I guess those people weren't necessarily picking the Patriots to win. They just thought maybe it would be a field goal game. Maybe it very well be a field goal game, but at the very least, CJ Stroud needs to play a lot better in this game than he did against the Steelers. That was, I think, the worst game I've ever seen from Stroud. As in, I'm sure he had worse numbers in a lot of games, but in those games, I could probably make more excuses for him. And in this game, it's like, in the Steelers game, it was, I can't even blame you. I can't blame your offensive line like I would normally be able to do in these.
Yeah, or lack of a run game.
Yeah, the run game was just torching. The
pass rush was, and Christian Kirk was destroying. You know.
Yeah, so I don't understand why Stroud just looked rattled from the first play in that game, and I'm not gonna say he can't redeem himself or that a player shouldn't be given the grace of one yippee playoff game, especially on the road, against Pittsburgh, like Tomlin teams, all that stuff. They make it intimidating. It's not as if Stroud were the first one who was intimidated, but man, he looked straight up scared in that game. And going to New England is rarely that much more fun for a quarterback. It's the peak Steelers defenses in Pittsburgh are maybe the scariest thing you can think of in the NFL, but the Patriots are pretty tough on defense, and notably the Texans are weak on the interior of their offensive line, where the Patriots have arguably the best defensive tackle rotation, or sorry, the best. I guess I forgot about the Tonga guy, their 2-gap guy. He might have been out last week, and I forgot to follow up on what's going on with him. But Milton Williams and Christian Barmore,
yes,
those guys are such monsters. And if Tonga's in, it tougher yet for the Texans, but they don't need Tonga, in my opinion. When you look at Barmore and Williams, each of those guys, and both at once, of course, are capable, I think, of derailing entire drives on the Texans. And the Texans defense, of course, can derail or worse your drive with their defense. And the Patriots' offensive line is not exactly good. It's rebuilding and it's progressing. They got some prospects. A guy like our guy Jared Wilson, John. He's more toolsy than he is polished. He gets beat plenty. Will Campbell, apparently the stubby arms, they looked like an issue last week. I don't know. I guess a Khalil Mack type at the very least we can say is a problem for a Will Campbell. And so, yeah, Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson against Campbell. I'm not giving Campbell the benefit of the doubt.
Nope.
Drake May is in some danger here for sure, but the difference, in my opinion, is, and I am not out on Stroud at all, but I do think May is better. I think Josh McDaniels is running that offense really well for the Patriots. So I see ways that the Texans can have their drives derailed a little bit easier than in the case of the Patriots, although also in the case of the Patriots, I just expect Drake May to categorically handle everything better than CJ Stroud does. And again, I'm not trying to sound critical of Stroud. I still suspect Stroud will be a top 5 quarterback in the league in the next few years or something like that. But Drake May could be the best at that point.
Yeah, I have Drake May. I mean, this is fantasy as opposed to real life. Were you in on the RotoWire like roundtable rankings? Where'd you have May?
Yeah. I think I put him in like the 10th round because I didn't know what that offensive line would be like or how much the Patriots would throw it. As it turned out, they didn't throw it that much, but May was just so awesome that he, torched with extreme explosiveness anyway.
Sure. So I have him as my fantasy QB2 for next year. I didn't
Oh yeah.
project.
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant last year's rank. Next
Oh
year
no.
he's ranked like quarterback 2 or 3 for me.
Yeah. I think like Josh Allen will be number one with the bullet. Like he'll be kind of in a tier of his own, and then I think Drake May maybe in a tier of his own as well, and then you start figuring out 3 through 10 from there for fantasy. But
I think I put him at 3 behind Lamar, but anyway.
I had Lamar 3, and I was wondering if that was going to be too high relative to our consensus, but I think that those will be posted soon, folks. So a little tantalizing teaser of our RotoWire roundtable ranks. All right, going back to this game though, I do just feel more confident in the Patriots offense just objectively than what we've seen out of the Texans. I think it was encouraging for them to be able to run the ball last week, but I think by that same token,
They're
I think
not
people kind of forgot how bad the Steelers were against the run this year.
Mm-hmm.
They were really bad against the run, and I think that if you needed one more reminder, I think Monday was a good one. If Woody Marks and Nick Chubb are just like trouncing all over you, and you can have a game where CJ Stroud is turning the ball over constantly, sometimes in really bad situations, and the Steelers can't make him pay for it because of that Texans defense. Now, that is important to me. I've been saying for a while now that I think the Texans defense is one that can get them to the Super Bowl, and I'm going to continue to feel that way. I think that
Sure.
This defense is that every bit that good. I think, we saw it on Monday. We've seen it throughout the course of this entire season. So I know it's a disadvantageous spot to go on the road to New England, especially if the offense really isn't helping you. And, if Nico Collins isn't available, if he doesn't clear protocol, that's your one true.
I buried the lead there. If he's out, then, fast forward to next week.
Christian Kirk seems to be on one, but maybe that was just a Steelers problem. But basically, long-winded way of saying that I think the Texans defense is good enough to get it done in this spot against the Patriots. I am going to say the Texans win this game, pull the upset.
Oh, nice. I hope that the Texans win, but yeah, I not that I don't want the Patriots to win. I just I like the vibe of the Houston defense. I'd like DeMeco Ryans, but I think I like both of these teams. Drake May is a likable player, and not that I mean to dismiss the threat of the Texans defense. And if Drake May struggles badly against the Texans defense, I would absolutely defend Drake May for anyone trying to criticize him for it. You're allowed to have bad games against a defense as good as the Texans. But yeah, it is. I think it's pretty much the same as the Buffalo-Denver thing where, well, maybe the defense wins it for them, but short of that, ...
Yeah, and I mean, let's not forget that the Patriots offense did struggle against the Chargers defense a week ago, and the Chargers defense is very good. Like
the OL is a problem, actually. I mean, and also we got to see how Morgan Moses does in practice. He's the reliable one, Morgan Moses had like 35 or whatever. So this is an offensive line in transition rather than a fully formed one.
It is. So yeah, I think that this Texans defense is just nasty enough to get it done. I mean, again, the Patriots had, I think, just one touchdown drive last week, had a turnover inside their own 10-yard line that the Chargers were unable to cash in on. Again, you get worried about Houston's offense falling short in a similar way. But ultimately, I think that this is to me, this Houston defense is reminiscent of the 2015 Denver Broncos one that just dragged what was left of Peyton Manning to
what they remind me of? They remind me of those Monty. I know it's not quite the same thing, but the way that the Texans just place in the league and the way that that their game kind of just feels relative to the other ones reminds me of Monty Kiffin, Tampa Bay.
Yeah, like the 02 Bucks. Yeah,
because like the 250-pound defensive ends, the corner, like a guy like Lassiter, total Tampa 2 corner. He would have been a total, he's a whatever Rondé Barber kind of deal or whatever. But anyway, yeah, the Patriots I am picking to win and probably to cover, but no criticism of Drake May at all if he has a disaster game against a defense like that.
No, definitely not. Drake May is the real deal, but I just think that so too is that Texans defense. Let's round it out. We've got the Bears and the Rams. Very exciting game to close out divisional weekend. We've got the Rams checking in as a 3.5 point favorite on the road in Chicago. I know I gave you the weather report for the Denver game. Looks like Seattle's going to be fine. I've heard word that Chicago it's not going to be super pleasant on Saturday. Let me confirm the exact, or on Sunday. It's going to be very cold. I think chance of some snow. We've got a high of 19 and a low of 2 degrees.
You know, John, so I can do a little reporting on this one. In southern Wisconsin, there's this kind of cold wind right now that it's some of the most miserable wind I've ever experienced in my life. It was 40 degrees or something 2 days ago, so I went outside yesterday with I never wear a coat. I actually wear this usually when I'm outside. But I went outside with my diminished layers. I take this off. There's a sweatshirt, and I got, just about killed by the wind. It just feels so harsh, and apparently it's only measuring at like 20 degrees or something. It feels like it's negative degrees outside when the wind hits you, especially.
I was checking in. I check in on the Madison weather this time of year, and this morning looked pretty rough. Looked like it was like 3 degrees out or something like that. So Chicago just about 120 miles south. Yeah, it's not fun, folks. So that I think there's a lot of stats out there regarding like the Rams or dome teams in crazy weather conditions such as this. I mean, Stafford played in the NFC North, obviously in a dome, but for so long in his career, and we're still kind of figuring out how Caleb Williams handles it, although it's obviously been pretty good.
No one likes to play in this. No. Everybody does worse when the weather gets cold enough.
So I think that, like, with that in mind, I think the under is probably like my favorite play from this one. It's 48.5. I'm not sure how we get there exactly, because I think that both of these offenses could struggle, and it's just kind of a matter of like who blinks, who turns it over, and who doesn't.
Right. So on the one hand, in the case of Caleb Williams, I'm not getting my hopes up at all for a clean game from him. If Caleb Williams completes any more than 55% of his passes in this game, I'll be pretty shocked. I would assume it's a pretty good sign for the Bears if he does. They've shown the ability to win without him getting to even that pretty low figure, though. If Caleb Williams completes 45% of his passes, Bears still might win. In no small part because Stafford's numbers also get a worse projection here. I mean, if the Rams if the Rams have reached a certain level of competition, while assuming Matthew Stafford provides a certain level of play, and they do, because it all really does come down to him. They put so much slack on him. Stafford really does play at a higher level than most people give him credit for, in my opinion. But that's all the more reason to say, like, if he has a bad game, which we saw a little bit of it in both Panthers games, if Stafford starts glitching, Rams all of a sudden look like a team, and we've gotten accustomed to him really more so playing great lately. But weather like this, Nakua should be fine. It might seem a little counterintuitive. This guy from Hawaii or whatever would be really good, or Samoa or whatever would be actually a good cold weather player, but I bet he is, because the most important thing is you have to be a maniac, basically.
Yeah, I don't think he feels pain like normal people do.
Yeah, the cold, like getting hit in that kind of cold, really, even catching the ball hurts. Just throwing the ball probably hurts. The ball gets heavier, it turns into a rock. So Puka Nakua kind of receiver, if you can get a guy like that who will show up in the cold, that's big, because you got to worry a little bit about Devontae Adams, in my opinion. I mean, his completion percentage this year was already insanely low, and the cold is not going to help that. So if you can keep Matthew Stafford's completion percentage stable by giving him simple, glorified handoffs to Puka Nacua because Nacua is going to add plus 12 or whatever every time. That's a nice crutch to have, and certainly I think Kyron Williams and Blake Corum, if the Rams lean on the run game, those guys can hurt a defense like the Bears. But I meant to look up the status of Kevin Dotson because so he was limited in practice yesterday. If Kevin Dotson is back, and if he's Kevin Dotson as he's been for the last 2 years for the Rams, that's huge because it's exactly in a game like this where the field gets smaller, everything just kind of hurts more and is more viciously contested. It's good to have a Steve Avila and a Kevin Dotson on your offensive line, and then a run game that you can kind of go into the shell with, because it basically is. It's a good way to make the other team miserable if you can kind of to stop the Rams offense. If you have to go through the toughest part of their offensive line over and over and over, and it adds up after a while. I think you can kind of wear them down, maybe create a few big pass plays for Stafford, especially off play action. But the Rams, the challenge for them, in my opinion, is winning without Stafford being as good as they've been accustomed to. In Caleb's case, it's like, yeah, the Bears have been good, and you could even say Caleb's made a couple timely big plays, important plays, but you can't say the Bears need Caleb Williams to play well to win.
How do you mean? Just based
just
on
because
the fact that
they've won plenty of times without him playing well, whereas the Rams, it's more like if Stafford's playing poorly, they don't have a chance. I think.
How do you grade his performance last week?
Of Caleb Williams?
Yeah.
I thought that it was a weird game for me because I just blame the Packers for blowing it. I know that's not quite fair. That's not how things work. The Bears do get credit for winning that game, but the way the first half went, the stretch of the game where the Bears fell behind such that it looked like the Packers pretty much had it all taken care of, that should have been the way the game more or less ended. And it's, in my opinion, only through kind of negligence that the Packers gave the Bears a viable script to do anything else. So Caleb has done this multiple times, by the way, where he did enough to win, and he literally did what was necessary to win. But I worry about him getting that many lives this time, in any given game. But I only say that as like a long-term, challenge for him to become the prospect that he needs to be, that the team thought he would be. The Bears have shown the ability to win with him not doing that well, and that being more like the first half of that game than the second. So that's the only reason why I mention that, because Stafford is an MVP candidate, a top 2 MVP guy for a reason. It's like he is the Rams. The Bears, I think it's fair to say, have won in spite of Caleb at a lot of points this year. And I don't even say that to sound critical of Caleb Williams. It's just, to me, he's clearly underdeveloped as a passer, and he's grinding his way through it. He cut down the sacks this year. He's been good about turnovers the whole time, but he was even better about turnovers this year. So he's got that part of his game accounted for. But when it comes to completing passes on time and providing like a predictable passing game, I think Caleb has some things to grind further there. And it's good that the Bears don't need him to be more than he is, because I don't think he's there yet. I think he's going to need maybe next year he'll get there. He also might not get there. It's gone different ways for different players, but I just think that the Bears, they've shown, call it Ben Johnson's, psycho factor or whatever else, but the Bears have shown that they have a sort of knack for like the grimy situations, and that's what's kind of carried them to this point in the year, in my opinion, and it's what gives them a really good shot at winning this game too. But I think if Caleb has a good game, it'll probably be a game where he ideally doesn't throw the ball too much. I think it'd be a great game for Caleb to lean on his running, doing a lot of rollouts, situations where you're basically not even planning on throwing the ball, where you're just planning on running it. That could work, because Caleb can definitely run, and there's ways to work with that, especially if you can get Swift and Monungai to combine for at least 30 carries between the two of them. And I think they can. In fact, that's another key for the Bears, which is convenient again, because they need to win that way, run heavy. the Rams' run defense is kind of fake. I've been saying that all
Mm.
year. Like they got some disruptive guys. Players like Braden Fisk, I like a lot, but those are one gappers. Kobe Turner, probably more of like a one gap guy. He's fairly all purpose, but they don't really have. They're sort of the opposite of what the Lions do. You know, the Lions are like, we're putting two gap guys on the field at all time. The Rams are like, we're putting 8 one gappers, and 4 of them are undrafted free agents.
Yeah.
And none of them have ever stopped the run in their lives. That's a muddy ball kind of thing the Rams have gambled on in their defense the past few years, and they've generally gotten good results. But with personnel like that, like the Rams have, if you need to, honest to God, defend the run in a game, you're in a lot of trouble. So that's what I see Ben Johnson's trying to leverage as much as possible. I think it makes sense to hide any quarterback in weather that's cold enough, and I think the Bears will similarly try to hide Caleb a little bit. Try to make Caleb's function more like making occasional big plays rather than having to carry the offense from the play to play. Because like when he's kind of free to take his like 3-point shots, it seems like he's a little more comfortable when they say, Caleb, just get us 5 yards on this play. It's like that's when he seems to glitch the most.
Right. Exactly. So will be interesting to see, how much of the Swift Monungai combo the Bears try to lean on, especially, in the early part of that game, getting things established. It does warm my heart to see Swift playing this well. I was always,
He had a really good year.
yeah, honestly, great year from him. I was always or after a couple of years of just getting hurt or not being in the right situation as a Georgia guy, I'm like, is it ever going to happen for him? But feels like this particular spot in Chicago, it's going pretty well for him this year in particular. One last thing, talk to me a little bit about the Rams secondary and where the Bears could potentially, attack them, because I've been really impressed by Colston Loveland coming down the stretch here. I think that he's kind of found this new gear, and like I'm concerned that having him as like tight end 4 for next year is too low type of thing. So where in the Rams secondary would you be worried about some leaks?
So I mentioned that the Rams' run defense is fake. So is their pass defense. The
Yeah.
whole defense is fake. To be serious, there are some real players. It's just the ones that are real are all one gapper types. So it's like you got Jared Verse, Turner, Fisk, Byron Young. Those guys are pretty nasty. Everything else in the front 7 is kind of busted, in my opinion. And so if there's a scenario where those pass rusher, if those disruptive guys, if they don't show up, the secondary personnel that the Rams have would be in trouble, and these guys basically can't cover, in my opinion. They've gotten good results purely out of scheming details, which is part of why I suspect Sean McVay has his hands on this defense a little bit. I think there's maybe a point in time where Sean McVay realized enough times, like, I hate it when a defense does this. So then he, told the defense, you should do all this stuff that I hate when I'm trying to run an offense. It seems like something like that is going on because the personnel in the secondary for the Rams has changed a great deal, especially at corner over the past few years, but the results have been basically the same. It doesn't matter whether it's Emmanuel Forbes, Kobe Durant, Darius Williams, Akello Witherspoon, Darian Kendrick, guys who, for the most part, would not so much as rank in the top 4 of most other teams' cornerback depth charts, would start for the Rams, and they generally get pretty good results. I don't know how they do it, honestly. I don't know what scheming details would make that group of cornerback personnel overachieve that much. There's also a lot of Quentin Lake in the slot, and I'm sure he's a good player, but he wasn't even known as a good cover safety coming out of UCLA, and now I'm to believe he's just unbeatable in the slot. I kind of doubt that. So I suspect the Bears receivers, if healthy, can run circles around these guys, and the challenge is getting those corners isolated in coverage in the first place, because the Rams know that these guys can't cover. It's the key to why it's worked in the first place, is that they make the responsibilities very narrow and difficult to screw up. So your challenge as an offensive coordinator, as a quarterback, as a receiver, is to sort of guess correctly what kind of coverage scheme shenanigans the Rams are doing. I assume they do a ton of man match and sort of varied disguised coverages, hybrid coverages between man coverage and zone coverage, which, yes, is a thing. I think they've also shown a pretty clear tendency to just tell their corners to troll the first down line. You'll see a lot of times the Rams corners they'll just straight up line up where the first down marker is. And try to clobber the receivers if the other team tries to throw it at the sticks. And I guess there's something to it. But Rombadouze, DJ Moore, Luther Burden, I know they got mad at Luther Burden last week, but at least you can't cover him. Maybe he's going to do something stupid, but these corners can't cover him or the other two receivers. And Colson Loveland, as you said, not to minimize him, he's such a given at this point. To me, the question about him next year is over or under 100 catches, because I think when Colson Loveland is at his peak in the NFL, he'll be a candidate for something like 120 catches a year, let alone 100.
So a McBride-esque.
Oh yeah, I think he'll be better than McBride. Not to sound like an ingrate or to make it sound like it's easy to be McBride, because it's not. McBride's clearly very good, but Loveland's just like a blue chip tight end, and specifically for the purposes of drawing targets, I think he'll have a really good shot, I think, at leading the Bears in receiving production next year. And I say that as someone who thinks Roma Dunze is awesome.
Yeah, like they have real, like it's not like the old days where it's like Mark Andrews is leading the Ravens in receiving. Well, it's like, well, of course he is, but with Loveland, you have great receivers around him, and he's still kind of like the best of the bunch. It feels automatic when Caleb looks his direction. He makes it all look so easy. I've been so impressed by him, especially down the stretch. So I think he's kind of like he's too well known to be an X factor, but certainly I look for him to be a big key in this game, if nothing else. I'm going to say that the Bears cover this one, but I think the wiliness of McVay leads me to believe that the Rams come out of here with a ticket punch to the NFC Championship game.
If I remember right, for the picks article, I went with Chicago to cover, thus kind of copping out of the question of who's actually going to win. I think I'll take the Bears, honestly.
Okay.
Or how about this? If the temperature is below, if the feels like temperature is below 10, if the winds are higher than 15, I'll take the Bears, because I really do think you just can't scheme your way through this kind of cold if it's going to be that kind of cold. McVay can be the most genius play caller of all time, and that kind of cold on a day like that, it would mean less than ever. So if anything, the ability to win with a primitive approach like the Bears have shown, I think could be almost an asset here.
Yeah, we're looking at some pretty gnarly weather. I'm thinking for Sunday, again, high of 20, low of 7. Sunday night, chance of flurries. I'm sure there'll be some wind, especially where that stadium is located. Blustery, it says here on forecast.weather.gov. Big shout out to forecast.weather.gov. Yeah, so I think that that's bear weather, as it were. Certainly something that should suit the Bears a little bit better than the Rams. I still think the Rams get it done, but yeah, this should.
Hey, I don't feel strong about it at all. I would prefer to just not pick.
Yeah, but I'm making you, because it's good content and so on. But yeah, so I think recapping, I've got the Bills winning, I've got the Seahawks winning, I've got the Texans winning, and I've got the Rams winning. So we got a Bills, Texans. I guess that would be in Houston, wouldn't it? The AFC Championship game in Houston against with Seattle and the Rams as the NFC side of that one. That one would be in Seattle. And you have the Bills, you have the Seahawks, you have the Patriots, and you have the Bears. Is that correct?
Yes.
Awesome. All right, we will revisit that, and we're going to unpack a whole lot more in next week's episode. Obviously, with there just being 2 games that weekend, we'll have some other fun stuff to talk about, probably some draft stuff, probably some other things that we're working on. Speaking of things that we're working on, I just put up a best ball article talking about the quarterback performance from this past year. I even made some charts. Pretty cool. Oh, yeah. And then I just sort of like forecasted out how I'm going to rank the top 10 for this coming year, and try to kind of forecast also like the shape of the ADP. I expect it to look a good bit different than it did this past year, the last 2 years, where You're routinely getting 4 quarterbacks drafted inside the top 45 or so. I don't know if that will be the case this year. I think that more people will be willing to wait after Josh Allen comes off the board. Well, Drake May will be kind of an interesting domino as far as the ADP and the quarterback runs are concerned, even though, waiting on quarterback this past year was the way to go. So we'll see how that all shapes up next year. I try to take a stab at what I think on that. You can check that out over on rotowire.com. No paywall. It's free. But if you want to see stuff that is behind the paywall, go to rotowire.com. Use that code YouTube15 and you'll get 15% off any subscription. Big thanks to our sponsors over at Blue Wire and over at Dabble. Everybody, please enjoy the weekend of a divisional round action. Stay warm. For Mario Puig, I'm John McKechnie. Thanks for listening.